Hello and welcome to the Karuna Podcast. I'm Lyddall. I'm the manager of the Karuna Coffee House, and I'm joined today by my good friend and my boss, Simon Hannington, who's one of the directors of Karuna Action.
Hi.
So Simon, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you got involved with Karuna Action?
Okay, yeah. So a bit about myself. I'm 43. I've been working for Karuna Action now for coming up 18 years. I got involved with Karuna by essentially I was working for a large drinks company, and I was going to a local church, and I was really kind of dissatisfied with where I was at in my life. Things I was doing with my life, it wasn't really didn't have any value. And I went on a bit of a spiritual journey. My then wife was working for Karuna Action. She still is. And she suggested I volunteer. And so I started working alongside George, who was the director at that point. And a whole load of series of events took place. I very, very clearly heard a call to kind of give up my job and start kind of giving my life in service of others. Then George was at the time thinking about stepping down, and he was making plans to, future-proof what was King's Care at the time. And so I just kind of said to George one day, I think it was on New Year's Day, I'm going to work for you this year. And it was kind of a faith statement. And he responded to that. And he said, I agree, but I don't know how. It was one of those times where I didn't have the money to do it. But, when you take that leap towards something for your future, that provision comes in. And, I would say that's God. Been on a journey with Karuna since then that has been absolutely life-changing for myself and for hundreds of other people. Being involved in, building a school in Uganda, being involved with, cleft lip and palate operations in Peru, helping with setting up projects, livelihood projects in Sri Lanka, all sorts, just amazing things that we have been able to be part of. And so for me, that's how I got involved, and that's still what I'm involved in and still what I'm really passionate about.
So you mentioned God then. Is how large is your faith in your role in Karuna? How important is that to you?
It's integral to my role in Karuna. There are times where you just have to kind of knuckle down and you get on, and it feels like God really isn't a big part of that. But God, when you have faith, God is always part of that. And you sometimes go through those moments where you feel like God isn't in it, and then you get the other side and you can see that guidance, that hand on what you're doing, and you see things happen that you just don't expect.
So you mentioned earlier that it used to be called King's Care. Where does the name Karuna come from, and why did you make the change?
So Jessica and I, when we were involved, when George was running it, we talked a lot about the name, it not meaning too much to people who didn't know us as an organisation. So we were part of what was called the King's Church. It was a big church in the area and had a number of other branch churches around up and down the country as well that related to us as a church, but also to us to King's Care as an organisation. So King's Care grew out of that network, but anyone outside of that really had no idea what that really meant. King's Care was very much seen as a mission arm of a particular church. So we went through a bit of an exercise finding out, what we could call ourselves. But also there was another exercise that was taking place while Jess was doing her development studies master's degree, just around that kind of power struggles with development organisations and the beneficiaries. And so we wanted to kind of balance out some of those power struggles, because we didn't want to be seen to be this kind of white saviour. We wanted to speak their language. And so we started in Sri Lanka and India, and Karuna means compassion, and it means that to a number of people who have Sanskrit as their kind of base language. So Urdu, in Hindi, in Sinhalese and Tamil, all sorts of languages in sort of Southeast Asia understand that word Karuna. So our Nepali community here in Aldershot, they know the word, they know what it means, and it's not just a feeling. The word Karuna, it's a verb, it's an action. So for us, we chose Karuna also because the word compassion was taken by another organisation quite large, and so Karuna really fitted who we were, but also kind of paid homage to our heritage, and gave something of a kind of just gave some respect back to our partners that we work with. Say we speak their language too.
So you mentioned trying to avoid being white saviours or perceived that way. What does Karuna do to set itself apart from that? How do we distance ourselves from that?
Particularly, we try to stay small, and we try to work relationally with people, and we work with local initiatives rather than being in an organisation that says, we've got this money, let's go and find somewhere that we can use it. We're people who are responding to local need. So we work with partners on the ground. So one example is Joel in Uganda. 2011, Jess and I first met him, and our question was, is this really what you want to be doing? We were sponsoring 35 kids, and he said, no, not really. I want a school. I want a clinic. I want a nursery. I want, facilities, boarding facilities for these kids, so that I can get them off the streets. I can make sure they're healthy. I want a kitchen so I can feed them. A project that was birthed from a man in Uganda that we supported, but also embodies our faith. When Jesus says, I was hungry and you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. Those are the things that we see in our faith as what God calls us to do for those who have not got what we have here. It's really important to us.
And when you talk about our partners overseas, how do you meet these partners? How have you developed these connections?
So again, it goes back to the church. Most of our partners have come through church connections. So many of them are churches who have a relationship with someone in Mongolia, but they can't deal with all the things that are required of you to kind of support that project. So a church is set up in a particular way, not necessarily always set up for mission work, is what they would call it, or what we call kind of development NGO type work. And so we
explain what NGO means?
A non-government organisation. So these kind of NGOs work around the world, and they implement that what we would call kind of charity work, development. So healthcare facilities, educational facilities, and so we kind of have been in the past anyway. Certainly when this all started, we were the people that kind of enabled those churches to meet the needs of their partners. And so we built partnerships, and a lot of them we've kept. Those churches, our connections with them have faded, some still remain, but our partnerships, a lot of them have remained. We've started in Sri Lanka, like I said, and many of those partnerships we still have, and they're really, really key people in our lives and in the work of Karuna.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head how many partners we currently have or how many projects we support?
Country-wise, it's 9.
Wow.
Including the UK. And I would say something like 12 partners that we're working with at the moment.
Obviously, Karuna Action, its main focus is solving poverty worldwide, but I feel like Karuna does a lot locally as well. Do you want to talk about some other projects we're involved with locally as well, or initiatives we support?
Yeah, so one of the things we're involved in, and we were integral to, because part of our mission, being part of Aldershot and our community, about 10 years ago, we got involved with the Trussell Trust Food Bank and helped set that up in Aldershot. There was a Farnborough Food Bank, and we created the Aldershot branch of that. And that was mainly Jessica's efforts with a community group, because we saw the need. And so that developed. When COVID hit, the council came to us because of our readiness to help the community, but also our expertise and our understanding of how to kind of dispense food to the community. They came to us and asked us, would you help us with emergency supplies and get that rolling? So unfortunately, the Trussell Trust kind of had to go into emergency mode. We went into sort of a new mode with the council, and something in Aldershot now, which is called the Grub Hub, grew out of that. And Jess is a director of that. Jess and I and a girl called Hannah Shuttler, we were kind of the 3 people who started that very early on. I then took on this building, and that was my responsibility, so I took my hands off. Jess is still very much a part of that, and so part of what we do in the community there is we give Jess its time, and that's hugely valuable because it's now a really, really well thought of organisation of itself in Aldershot, but it feeds over 250 people or families a week, and yeah, it's an amazing project which you could talk to Jess more about. She'll wax lyrical about it. Then again, because this is a long answer, then there's what we do here. We are doing supported volunteering, working with people out of work, working with people with additional needs, and also asylum seekers who are here, who are unable to work because of government policy. So we're working with 3 different groups of people, and they volunteer here. That helps make the Karuna coffee shop profitable, along with our other cohort of volunteers. But that's kind of really giving people skills, work experience, transferable skills to just get them back into work. Language skills for certainly the asylum seekers, confidence skills for certainly people with additional needs that you've been working with in the shop. We've seen some of these guys really, really flourish. They come in a shell, and over the 6 months, we see them grow and become whole people. And it's a beautiful thing to be part of. That's a bit of what we do. There's a whole load more in terms of counselling that happens. We've got 2 different counselling services. One is a youth counselling service run by the NHS. And then there's a private counselling service that uses one of our rooms, and that helps support us because they give a bit of what they make back to charity. So yeah, there's lots and lots of things that we're involved in. That's to name a few.
So obviously, a lot of people who are watching this might be more familiar with Karuna Coffee House than they are with Karuna Action.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, where did coffee come from? Because it feels quite detached from what Karuna Action's about. So where's the origin of that?
I had this ridiculous idea back in 2013 that we should like set up our own roasting business. That came from our need to reach a new audience. So we were going out on the road to our local church partners and our church partners all over the country. We learnt that talking to people in church wasn't really achieving anything, but actually talking to people after church over a cup of coffee and saying, kind of just engaging person to person, was actually engaging people and generating interest in our organisation. So from that, we had a conversation. I remember in a church called Highway in a place called Marshgiven. Someone said, "Oh, do you do your own coffee?" And someone said no, but that kind of sparked an idea in my head. So I just went on this tangent, and I took coffee roasting to my passion as well for coffee to the kind of extreme where we've got a coffee roaster in here and nice beautiful machine out there, and a community hub that serves our community, but not only that, serves a really good quality coffee at a really good price.
So where do you see Karuna, both the coffee shop and Karuna Action? How do you see it moving forwards over the next few years?
Okay, the next couple of years. We've always said, certainly as trustees, as directors, that the local community is key to our future. And we've seen a drift in our international support. That's largely because I think we've focused more on our local community and some other things as well, other factors to that. But because of our focus shifting, other people's focus has drawn away from us. So there is this kind of need now to change a little bit of our focus to sustain our future, to grow into what we're doing now, but keep our international work. I don't know necessarily it'll be as big as it has been in the past, but I think what we'll do is we'll do the things we do really well, and support people really well, rather than spreading ourselves too thinly, which I think there's a danger of that when you just want to be big and you want to do everything. I think we just want to do the things we do really well. And I think the local community, we've got a great reputation. We're doing good stuff, and I think that's going to be a really important part of our future.
So talking about the future, but this time the much nearer future, in 2 months, myself, you, Aggie, Edward, Kayla and Ash, we're going to walk the Camino. Can you talk a bit more about why we're doing that?
Okay. Do you want the really honest answer, or the long one, or do you want the answer that kind of satisfies the question?
Both. Whatever you'd prefer to give.
I'll do a bit of both. I did the Camino with Jess a couple of years ago, and that was a really important journey for both of us. And then 6 weeks later, I went back on my own and did that. From that, I talked about that being quite an important journey that I took. It was a real pivotal point in my life, personally, and started talking about it with people like you and Edward, and that kind of enthusiasm that I had seemed to be a little bit contagious, and you guys were like, yeah, it'd be great to do it. And so the cogs turned, and I like to think of ways in which we can do something fun, like coffee, that actually benefits Karuna. So I just kind of put that idea to you guys and said, should we do this? Let's make this not just about fundraising for a walk, but fundraising for Karuna, fundraising to reach more people within our community about what we do and what we're about. So engaging our customers, and so so far we've got 44 new donors that we didn't have before. And those people were customers, and they're now donors, and we can now reach out to them and talk to them about the value of what we do. So the whole point of it is really about Karuna, but I think at the same time there's a journey that we will all go on that I think could be really, really important, a spiritual journey that I believe can really talk to our hearts.
So if people want to get involved with supporting Karuna, how do they do that?
You can go on our website, karunaaction.org. You can engage through Instagram and Facebook. Loads of things there that talk about what we do. The Camino is featured on there quite heavily.
If I was to add something to that, come into Karuna Coffee House and have a chat with us.
I'm going to say that myself.
It's got you off too soon. And if someone's never heard of Karuna before listening to this, what's the one thing you'd want them to take away from this podcast?
One thing. I think that we're ultimately our focus is people, and that we're not just some commercial entity in Aldershot that is about making money to line my pockets, because if the shop does well, I don't do any better. We're here because we're people focused and our community comes first. I was filling in a form today actually, and it said, what is your community? And it doesn't have to be people in your locality, but our community is the people who engage with Karuna. Those people are really important to us. And so I want people to take away from this is thank you for your support. We value it. It's incredibly important. And at a time like we are in at the moment, where money is tight for everyone, and cost of living is pushing all of us. Every penny matters to us, and we'll do everything we can to make each pound donated to us go as far as we can.
Simon, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me today.
That's right.
Thank you everyone for listening. I hope you found this informative and enjoyable. Hopefully we'll have more videos like this coming soon. But for now, have a great rest of your day. Bye.